Hey folks, welcome to Fresh Produce. I'm Pete from BTI. Today we've got special guest Stuart from Rohloff come to visit us all the way from Germany. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, so this is he's here for a couple of reasons. Shooting this video and helping our customers understand Rohloff is a big one, but also BTI is getting set up as a service center for Rohloff. So it's a real exciting announcement for us. We've had a lot or all of the support parts for Rohloff for a long time, and now we can extend that support with servicing the hubs, warranty support, annual service. Actually, the annual service is done at the shop level in most cases, right?
Yeah, pretty much. The only service the hub really needs, if handled correctly, would be an annual oil change,
Absolutely.
Which the shop can do for the customer locally.
Perfect. So we can support beyond that. So the goal is really to give our customers and end users the fullest confidence in buying a Rohloff hub and owning it. So it is a really niche hub. There's a lot of unique pieces of it compared to a normal drivetrain, but also very premium at the same time. Huge gear range, extreme durability.
Yeah, that's for sure. We got one customer that's almost hit the 500,000 kilometer mark.
Wow.
So they just keep going. Yeah. And as long as that service, say that oil change is done, you should be fine. But the Speedhub's not a disposable product. It's been designed to last and last and last. So maybe at some point you want to get a different frame. Maybe your riding style's changed and you need a different type of bicycle. So the guys here at BTI now trained up. I spent the last couple of days with them. They can take care of any adaptations you need, as well as bigger servicing. So if you need a different axle type for your new frame, or if you need your existing Speedhub now converted to disc brake or something, the guys here at BTI got you covered. Absolutely.
So we're really excited about that, and we think it should give our dealers a huge amount of confidence. Now, we also want to give, extend that kind of piece and show how easy it is to measure dropouts, which is an important part of the process for getting a Speedhub in the first place, for thru axles specifically.
Yes.
For quick release setups, pretty easy, just one system bolts right on.
Pretty easy, yeah. The situation with a thru axle is a little complicated. Mm-hmm. The Speedhub itself cannot accept a true thru axle, so we have a female tapped, internally tapped axle where bolts go through special frame adapters. Yeah. And clamp the hub in place. In order to make sure that we actually clamp the hub to the frame and don't clamp the hub to the adapter and have it sort of flapping around and not clamping that dropout, the dropouts do need to be measured accurately, and there's a special kit for that, which I believe you offer a great option to your dealers with.
Exactly. It's a little bit of a unique situation, but we know that the measurement kit is expensive. So we do sell it to dealers with the expectation they can return it for a full refund after it's used. So trying to make those kits very accessible and the system easy for our partners out there.
Fantastic.
So let's dive right into that. Stuart's going to show us how it works. We have got here the Rohloff dropout measurement kit. BTI tries to make this really easy for shops. We've got a system set up in which the shop gets to use this kit and doesn't have to keep it. It is really mandatory to use it to get a good hub fit for your customer. This is a really pretty cool kit. It comes with all the measuring devices to ensure that the Rohloff hub is going to fit the frame and getting all the proper pieces from Rohloff. So let's kind of watch the process. Our goal here is just to show you that this is fairly easy to do. We want to just make sure that shops aren't feeling intimidated by the process. Yeah. It's being used for every hub that is sold, I think, is the other important piece. So,
that's correct, yeah. So basically with the thru axle system, there are no real standardized dimensions on the dropout. So we need to make sure that whatever adapters we're using so that the Speedhub is going to fit in the frame, that is going to fit in there safely. Customer safety is number one. So as a dealer, taking the extra bit of time to get this kit, as the gentleman here said, BTI got a fantastic system available. Borrow the kit, sort it out, send it back, get a full refund on the purchase price. But yeah, so it's not really possible to say after measuring 2 or 3 frames that the tolerances are all close enough that we don't need to measure anymore. So this kit will be needed when you work out whichever frame you're using.
So we've got this pretty cool Sklar kind of touring bike. Actually, it would be a great setup for a Rohloff hub. So let's get right into it and just see the process.
Yeah. So number one, we're not actually starting with the axle. We're starting with the method in which we're anchoring torque to the frame, because if that's not going to work, it doesn't matter what the axle says. This particular frame is using a post-mount brake standard, and we have adapters where we can use that brake mount to actually anchor hub torque as well. This system is called a PM for post-mount. We have our post-mount axle plate. It's got a little forked head here. This is bolted to the Speedhub that you'll eventually have. And we have a PM bone. This sits between the frame and the brake caliper. So it's going to act as an adapter, forcing you further away from the frame, forcing you to use the next size up brake rotor. So if the frame's set up for 160 brakes, you're using 180. If it's set up for 180, you're using 203mm rotor, etc. But anyway, so we will put this on the top of the brake mount. The brake caliper would then sit on top of this. So the bone here is actually supplied with the longer bolts that you're going to need. We need to check this area here, make sure there's no collision between the adapter itself, the bone, and the frame. A post-mount axle plate then slides into the dropout and clamps at the top here around that bolt.
So we're just really ensuring that no frame pieces are in the way of these parts that need to fit in.
That's correct. They need to fit to the frame without any collisions. It needs to be possible to easily remove the rear wheel at a later date for replacing tires, etc. We don't want you to have to keep removing the brake every time and go through that setup again.
That'd be a real hassle.
That would be. So here we can see the plate, therefore the hub slips in and out easily. Both parts would function. So we know we're using a PM bone and a PM axle plate. Keep that information. We're going to pop that on the order form later. We then move on to the axle itself. Now, with the axle, if you're lucky, like we are here, the original thru axle is going to state exactly which thread pitch you have. So this is an M12 by 1.5mm thread. Yeah, from past experience, I already know that the green and the black threaded inserts here, these reduction sleeves, they're actually the 1.5mm thread. So we start off with the small one. We want to thread that into the dropout here, all the way in, threading it by hand. You should not need to use any tools. If you do feel the need to use tools, then there's probably dirt in that thread, so remove the reduction sleeve here and clean out the thread first. Once that's all the way in, we take our measurement gauge. This has a 1mm side and a 0.5mm side. Basically, we start off with the fat end. We want to push that up hard as if it were the axle and frame. Unscrew the adapter half a turn. I can't feel any movement in the lateral direction, so this sleeve is not going to be long enough. There's too much gap between the two, which would mean there's not enough thread holding your hub in at a later date.
Perfect.
So no need for that. We'll move over to the green one. Okay. With the green one, we take out these micro shims, put that over this reduction sleeve. We put all 6 on there so that the amount of thread left over for use is the least amount. We thread that into the frame, just like we did with the black reduction sleeve. Again, hand tight to the end. Take our measurement gauge, push it right up to the end. When I rotate this, I can feel it move in a lateral direction. If turn it over to the 0.5mm, I can also feel it move in the lateral direction, which means this sleeve is touching this, which in end effect would mean that the hub would not actually clamp the frame. So I need to add an extra washer. We don't have any extra washers in the kit, but what we do have are different spacers. Here, for example, the turquoise color is a 4mm thick, the equivalent of 8 washers. So I'll take that, thread this back in. Take our measurement gauge again, start with a 1.0, push it up. It moves very, very slightly. I can feel it move in and out. turn it over to the 0.5 millimeter side, I can't feel it move at all. That means that with this green reduction sleeve with the turquoise spacer, the tolerance is between 0.5 and 1 millimeter, which is perfect. Those are the elements I need for that side.
Well, so really this is a kind of a feeler gauge. We're just getting not just a measurement, but physically ensuring that the hub and axle is going to grab correctly, clamp the frame, and have enough threads engaged to be safe.
Exactly, yeah. We don't want too few threads engaged because then we're going to strip a thread out.
Yeah.
If we're lucky, it'll be the bolt, but it could be the axle, so that could get expensive.
Oh, yeah.
Equally, we don't want it to be so thin that the bolt inserts into the hub so far that it clamps the shifting mechanism or damages an internal axle.
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get that fine line between too much and too little.
Perfect. It's a pretty kind of like simple system to do that in a really cool way. So
yeah. So moving over to the other side, this time there won't be a thread. Thru axles rarely have a thread on both sides. So we have an orange and we have a red reduction sleeve. We're going to start off like we did on the other side with a small one. So the red reduction sleeve goes in there, tested on the 1-0 side, and if I'm moving here, we can see that has a lot of movement. So this is still too long. Now, normally, and according to the instructions, you add one micro washer at a time and retest it. One's not going to do anything there. So
we had a lot of movement.
So I'm going to throw on all of the washers and then try with the 6 from the start. There's no need to spend more time on this than necessary. So here with the 1.0 side, I have a very tiny amount of movement still. Flip this over to the 0.5. There's no movement. So just like the other side, we know that tolerance now is between 0.5 and 1 millimeter. So this side, the result for our online form that we submit later will be red plus 6 washers.
Right.
We then finally go over to the next test, which basically just verifies we haven't made an error with the first test.
Right.
We're all human, errors can happen. So removing all of the reduction sleeves and adapters, washers, etc. We take this element here, we screw the long part into the frame, clamp it with the outside bolt. Then grab our vernier gauge, turn it on, set it to metric, zero it, 0 millimeters, and we're measuring the thickness over this tool to 2 decimal places. So here we have 54.63. 54.63 millimeter will be the number that we put on the form. We do exactly the same with the other side. We take all this information that we've already got from which reduction sleeves, which colors, how many washers, these measurements, the post mount bone. A few other questions will be on that form that need to be submitted. For example, what color hub would you like? What is the frame spacing? Is it 142? Is it 148? Fat bike, is it 177 or 197 millimeter?
Sure.
We put all of that on the form. That gets submitted to Rohloff. We check that out. If there's any inconsistencies between test 2 and test 1, then we'll get back in touch and ask you to possibly redo one side. So please do not return the kit to BTI until we've got in touch, just in case we need you to redo anything. But if everything's good, we'll send a quote for that hub, for those accessories, to colleagues here at BTI. They'll get in touch, and as soon as we have a yay or nay, if you wish to go ahead with the order, if your customer's happy with the price that's been quoted, then go ahead, send that kit back to BTI. We'll get your hub built in Germany and in the post to you as soon as possible.
Yeah, so this is a pretty cool system. I really love the fact that there's so many double checks. There's a person interacting on the Rohloff side to ensure that you're going to end up, or your customer is going to end up with the right hub that fits your frame in a safe manner. It's really just ensuring a positive outcome for the end user. So I really love all these kind of checks that we've got in place, and that the system in place is a pretty cool setup. So it does take a little longer, but this is a great investment, and we know that everything's being done to ensure it'll work.
Yeah, and one last thing. those mounting hardware which you've put on the form, that gets logged by us in a database. So should you at any point lose potential components or need spare parts because they've worn, maybe the wrench has rounded out the sides of some components,
right.
Then just let us know the serial number of that Speedhub you've purchased and we know exactly what you need. So although this is individual for your hub and your frame only, we have all that data, so don't worry if any parts ever get lost.
Yeah, very cool. Love the system. Hopefully this kind of showed that it was a really simple process and takes away some of the concern that you might have about buying a Speedhub. We think that this is probably a little bit intimidating, but it shouldn't be. It's a fairly easy process, and a really important point of this whole thing is we're doing a lot of double checks on the front side to make sure that the customer has a great experience in the long run. So at the shop level, a lot of detailed measurement that gets sent to Rohloff specifically. They're double checking the work with an actual person looking at each submittal, and then come back to the customer into BTI to make sure we're getting the right hub ordered up and delivered. Okay. So once that's done with the measurement, I want to take a few minutes to show that there is an online form that information is submitted through. And it's also an important time to note that Rohloff keeps such a detailed record of all the hubs sold. You're keeping the serial numbers for all replacement parts necessary, and it's an important way to, if a hub or a bike was ever stolen, you guys can kind of chase it down and see where it might end up next as people need more service. So
yeah, like I was saying earlier, the Speedhub's been designed to really outlast pretty much every other component on the bike. So the chances of that hub that's possibly been stolen eventually finding its way back to a service point for conversion work or upgrade or service or what have you is quite high. And we actually get a good number of those hubs then back to their original owners because every hub itself has an individual serial number on it. So that's just a little extra benefit of registering the hub with us. Which is a point I'd like to actually address quickly. When selling a Speedhub or when you've purchased a Speedhub, please make sure it's registered with us directly. Not only does this make sure that we will have the details on file should it ever be stolen, but also we have a complete log of the service. We know which components have been used on that particular hub. Right. And if you ever need service in the future, let's say you're miles away from home, you haven't got your purchase receipt with you, you're in the middle of a tour, but we've got your details on file through the registration process, and we can help you. We can link you up to a distributor, whoever it is on a global level, and make sure that you're retain the same service quality you would have back home.
Yeah, so again, this just kind of goes along with this lifetime hub purchase and the commitment to taking care of a customer in the really long run. So pretty cool setup, I think. Really appreciate it from Rohloff. So show us the form here where we enter in details and kind of give a quick rundown on that setup.
Yes, so what we got here is the Rohloff website. Menu across the top here, we want to click over service. We have My Speedhub, where we have that registration I was speaking about earlier. Moving on to potential of things being stolen, we have the ability to report a theft. Yeah. By clicking on those options, it'll open up the correct portal for submitting a form, as is the service form there. But if we move over the other side to manual, here we have the A12 thru axle. That's what went through earlier. Clicking on thru axle over here, we have dropout measurement kit, which you've already sourced from BTI. We have little information about the axle plate. Obviously, a gear hub needs to anchor its torque to the frame. Yeah. So it's not just important checking the frame that the axle is going to have the correct adapters, the correct reduction sleeves to fit, but also that there's the ability to anchor that torque without any collisions on those components.
Exactly. So this is really giving instructions for you at the shop level to just ensure that all the checks are being made before the hub is ordered, and again, ensure that great outcome for the customer.
Yeah, exactly. Down here, we then have the compatibility test itself. Now, what you'll see here are 4 main axle types. There's one that's the DT and Maxle standard, it's a Shimano E thru 12 standard, and 2 different standards from Synthase. Obviously, the thru axle system's moved on leaps and bounds since then. There are a lot more different possibilities. But with each of these 4 sections, we simply click on the test and it'll say what components we need, step by step how we go through measuring all that, left-hand side, right-hand side, etc. Test 1, test 2. Test 2 is then using this adapter here in a vernier gauge. So when you do submit that information, we can actually compare your results of test 1 and test 2 to see if they correlate, or maybe through pure human error or miscalibration of the vernier caliper, there's something that's a little bit off. If that were the case, we'd get in direct contact and let you know.
Yeah, so kind of those double checks I was talking about, it's just like no expense spared to make sure that you get to a good outcome before the hub is shipped over, essentially.
Exactly, yeah. Then back over here on the menu, we have the online form itself. I'm not going to go through this in detail, but if we click on that, there we go. We ask for details about the company itself, obviously, so that we know who to allocate a form to. The bicycle frame, we're asking, is it belt, is it chain, what type of derailleur hanger, is it direct mount, is it UDH from SRAM, is it standard, etc. But right down at the bottom here, what I'd like to show is the compatibility check. In this box, we have those 4 different sections, the DT Maxwell, the Shimano E through 12, Syntace, etc. But we also have 2 options here for Paragon Machine Works. They actually make dropouts where you don't need any of the mounting hardware. Wow. The bolts just go straight through. Those dropouts have been correctly designed. We've signed off that the data, the production tolerances are okay. So you haven't got to measure anything if you're able to fit those dropouts. But we'd still need the form completed, so that should anything happen at a later date, we have all your details on file.
Yeah.
So that's just a heads up, the form will always be required even with those type of dropouts. The last one here, free combination, that's basically, if we click on that, we have the option of clicking on everything that's in that kit. Let's say it didn't fit quite into the pigeonhole of that DC Maxwell or Shimano, then you can write down everything. Let's say you had a green reduction sleeve, but you had a brown spacer as well, which is normally only for the Shimano system. So you can pop all of that in this form, which just makes it a lot easier, a lot more accessible for some of those slightly more obscure axle standards.
Sure, absolutely. So it should be noted, Speedhubs, Rohloff hubs can't fit on every single frame, but this will ensure that if it does fit, it's going to be a safe setup. So that's pretty cool. Cool. So tons of options on here to make sure that you can enter in all the data you recorded from the measurement kit. And then, like we said, Rohloff addresses that and gets back to us with correct fitment.
Yeah.
Very cool. So it may seem a bit intimidating. We want to just try to reduce those barriers and help all of our customers out there know that they can sell Rohloff with confidence. There's a whole bunch of processes in place to make sure that your customer gets a great outcome. So, Stuart, thanks so much for walking us through the process. I think these hubs are so unique, so premium, and really it would be a cool addition to a ton of unique bikes out there. So if you'd like to find one for your next customer or your own bike, make sure you ask at your local bike shop. Tell them BTI sent you.